Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hygiene Products 101 Period Power Workshop. This is our first workshop, and just thanks a bunch to everyone who has come and to join me in this workshop. So we're going to be talking a lot about different hygiene products today, and just the way that they're used and a lot of pros and cons for different ones. So let's get started. All right. So this is what's going to happen over this course of this recording. I'm going to talk a little bit about me and my project. Then I'm going to touch a little bit on some terms that might be confusing to people as we're going through this presentation. And then I'm going to talk about the different products, a lot of different period hygiene products that are used. And then we will come to a Q&A session and then conclusions. So first, a little bit about me. This is a Gold Award project, which means I am a Girl Scout and I am doing this service project. It is an 80-hour service project. I'm putting in a lot of effort to this, and this is not the first part of the project. I started with a survey that has gathered knowledge about different experiences that people have had with periods, ways that they think about periods. And a lot of that information went and was put on my website. So I created a many-page website that is sharing those results and also allows people to sign up for these workshops. And we'll soon host the recordings of the workshops. I had to present this whole idea for this project to the Girl Scout Council, which was a long process, but it was very worth it because I got a lot of feedback and a lot of support from my Girl Scout Council leaders, and that was really nice. And I've still reached out to them and just hear back about it and get some advice. So, some quick facts. So far, as of this recording, my survey has gotten 193 responses, which is just 7 away from my 200 goal. So that's really exciting for me. 200 people felt like a lot. It was pretty daunting at first, but it's looking pretty good. 5 workshops. This is one of the 5, of course, the first of the 5. And there will be a second one today. I'll talk about that one a little later, but that one will be about just going through what a day in the life is like for somebody with a period. I also have a website, as I mentioned earlier. I counted, it has more than 20 pages. That was a lot of design and a lot of implementing text and images. And I also have an Instagram account where I am sharing facts about periods as well as project updates. Okay, the second part of this workshop, the terms. So there are a lot of terms that people with periods might be very familiar with that can sound confusing or daunting or kind of a little gross sometimes to people without periods. So I just wanted to go over a couple of those. A flow, the period flow, the flow of blood just means how much blood is coming out. Sometimes you can have a heavy flow or a lighter flow. During your period, you can have a heavy beginning or a heavy end and light at beginning or end. So that's just a word to describe how much blood is coming out. A leak. This is actually a pretty common one that I realized you might not know what that means. That means when blood escapes a tampon or a pad or a menstrual cup and gets on your underwear, gets on your pants, gets on your bed, gets on a chair that you're sitting on. It is very common. Unfortunately, it's pretty annoying and not fun to deal with because it kind of messes up your day. You have to go change or you have to clean something. But yeah, another interesting word, menstruator. This was a term that I know has been unfortunately pretty contentious among people with periods because it is a gender neutral term that does refer to anyone who has a period. I know often before it was the word women was used or girls because that is predominantly female, the amount of people that get periods. Unfortunately, that is not actually the case because there are many people who identify as male or non-binary or anywhere on the gender spectrum that also get periods, and the term women or girl to refer to somebody getting a period can leave them out of the story. And I think that's really important to use inclusive language. So that's just a term that you might not have heard before. Another interesting one, wings. Pads occasionally have wings, which are little strips of fabric or cotton on the side that are wrapped around the underwear. And it's just an interesting term that people might not be familiar with. Again, another one, a reusable pad doesn't mean you just get to put it on, then take it off and put it on again. It does need to be washed. So let's not be confused there. For sanitary reasons, every time you use a pad or reusable pad or a reusable menstrual cup, reusable period underwear, they do need to be thoroughly cleaned between each usage for hygiene reasons. You wouldn't want to put something dirty inside your body, or, so some common sense. To insert something, this is, kind of, when you think about it, makes sense. To put a tampon or a menstrual cup into your body, I use that word a lot in the presentation without specifying insert into your body. So I wanted to make that clear. All right, well, let's get started with meeting a bunch of different products. So the first one, disposable pads. I feel like this is the most common sort of hygiene product you're going to use. And in fact, it is, I found a survey that said this is the most used. 30% of people with periods who responded to this survey said that they use disposable pads, which is very common. You see, you go into a Walgreens or a Walmart or a CVS and you see many, many options for disposable pads. So what are they? They are made of foam or polyester, and they have an adhesive bottom that will stick to your underwear. So they're very easy to put on and take off, very easy to deal with. They are disposable, which means after one usage, they do get thrown in the trash. You should not try and reuse a disposable pad, but they also come in organic materials as well. This is less common than the 30% used non-organic kind, which is just the plastic kind that you'll probably see in a store. 3% of people use these organic kind, and that's just a different type of material. That's a little more environmentally conscious, with a cellulose pad and a cotton top and the same adhesive bottom. So similar, but a little more environmentally friendly. Pros and cons of using pads. Pros, again, as I said, very easy to remove, very easy to put on. They're smaller, so they're, easy to package and carry with you, keep them in your purse. They don't go inside your body, which means there's no drying or discomfort inside your body, which is really nice for people who are younger or first time having their periods, because they're not as scary to use. I know sometimes people can be scared to use different types like pads, like tampons or menstrual cups, because they do require being inserted into your body. But this is just a simple thing that goes on your underwear. They also come in many different sizes and shapes. So depending on what you're looking for, you can always find something that fits your needs. However, there are also cons to using pads. They can be very bulky. I know this is something that some people dislike about them. When you sit down, you can certainly feel them in your underwear. So that's a little bit uncomfortable. And they can leak into your underwear when you're full. Again, you're sitting on it. Sometimes you're squeezing the blood out of the pad into your underwear, which is not great. So they should be definitely replaced every 4 to 6 hours is the recommendation. You also can't use them when you're swimming. Kind of makes sense. The water will get into the pad, the blood will leak into the water. There's nothing preventing the blood from just shooting into the water. It's not great, but you cannot use them when swimming. And also it's harder to use them during extreme exercise or extreme movement because they shift around. It's not something in your body that's preventing the blood from getting on your clothes. It's on your clothes to prevent the blood from going anywhere after it comes out of your body. So, pros and cons. If you do choose to use disposable pads, this is sort of how they work. They all tend to come in little square or rectangular packages that you unwrap them from the cover. If the pad has wings, there's always a little extra backing that helps the wings stick. So you just open the wings up, you put it in your underwear and stick it on, and you go about your day. And when it's time to remove it, most people roll or fold them, wrap them in toilet paper or the wrapping of the next pad, and they go in the trash can. This is great, except when there is no trash can in a restroom, or you don't have access to a next pad. So there are some issues, but this is generally how they are used. Another thing about pads that is commonly talked about is the extreme number of options. I'm sure we've all heard stories or seen posts online about a man going into a store, a boyfriend, a husband going into a store and being just absolutely lost because he can't remember what wings are. Why does she want wings? Do they want no wings? What size is this? So there's a lot of options. Just a little guide, little helpful guide. When you're picking out a pad, are you looking for daytime or nighttime? Because of course, nighttime you're going longer without changing it. So you're gonna need a more absorbent pad, as this size chart shows. Also, how heavy is your flow? If you have a heavier flow, again, you're gonna need a thicker or more absorbent pad, but also what size do you need? So that's not always the same thing. You can see the little steps here. You can need a small pad in a heavy flow or a small pad in a light flow. That just depends on the type of person that you're buying for. So if you ever go into a store and you're just do not know what's going on, they all often all the boxes of pads have a similar chart on the back, and you can find what you need. And wings versus no wings. If the person you're buying for hasn't specified wings versus no wings, there are two questions you can ask when weighing the benefits. How well does it need to stick? Because wings offer extra adhesive. So if there's a lot of movement happening, you're probably going to want to go with wings. But also, should it be visible in the underwear or whatever you're using? If you need a pad that is not visible, definitely stick with no wings, because the wings, again, fold to the outside of the underwear, which is pretty visible. So just a couple things to think about. And hopefully this is able to help some people be a little bit less scared when going to buy pads from the store. Next up is tampons. Let's talk about the non-organic tampons first. Used slightly less than pads, this survey is saying, and normally made of cotton or rayon, and they have a synthetic outer layer for smooth insertion. So if you look at a tampon, the outside is going to be a little bit different material from the inside, and that's to aid in smooth insertion, make it a little easier to go in. They often also have pull cords, so all tampons will have a cord, and that's for removal. And some tampons come with an applicator designed to insert the tampon into your body, and it's usually when you buy them, they're wrapped around the tampon, and the tampon comes out when you squeeze the bottom part. It's like a sort of like a syringe that shoots the tampon out. And they're often made of plastic or cardboard. You can, if you press the button to ask for one in a bathroom in the little box, what will come out will be a plastic applicator tampon. And those are pretty common. They're often individually wrapped, but you can also buy boxes of them if you need them for home use. And organic ones are pretty much the same, except the material is, again, going to be a little more environmentally conscious. Fully cotton cylinder with, again, a cotton cord and no outer layer, which does mean they are going to be a little bit harder to put in sometimes. They might be a little more uncomfortable for people, but they're probably worth it for others because of the environmental benefits. A fun fact, I did not know this when I looked it up, but some tampons have applicators, some don't. The ones that don't have applicators are called digital tampons, not digital as in online, but digital because you insert it with your digit or finger. So that was something that I learned. Okay, so I've called this slide disposable tampons, but there are such things as reusable tampons that should not be used. I've talked with my project advisor on this, who is a hormone specialist. She has a doctorate degree, and we've talked about, I saw that there are some reusable tampons. Should I talk about them in this slideshow? Is that something that is okay to use? And she said, those are never okay to use because no reusable tampons are vetted by the FDA for use. So the FDA does not think that they're safe. You can go online and you can certainly find reusable tampons that will claim, oh, these are safe and you use them and they're much better for the environment. But I would not recommend using them because they have not been approved by the FDA. If you go on Etsy, you can find crocheted reusable tampons, which seems like an even worse idea than perhaps a cotton kind of reusable tampon. So yeah, the crocheted tampons exist and you should not use them. So in the future, perhaps there will be more studies into how safe these reusable tampons are, and perhaps that will change about that. But for the moment, they should not be used.
So the pros for using tampons are that they can be used while you're swimming because they're inserted into your vagina, and that is blocking the blood from coming out. And when you insert them properly, they can't be felt inside your body. I mentioned pads sometimes being uncomfortable or bulky, and tampons, of course, if they're properly inserted, do not have that sort of issue. And they're also small enough and made of the right material that you can flush them down the toilet when you are done using them, which makes for clean disposal. And however, there are cons as well. They can be scary to insert, especially for younger menstruators. That's a big stigma with tampons. Inserting them can lead to loss of virginity, is the thing that some people say, which doctors have proven and common sense really shows is inaccurate. You also can't check how used a tampon is while it's still in your body, so that is an issue if you just want to see if you can leave it in longer. That's not how it works, unfortunately. The tampon is not supposed to go back in your body after it has been used for any amount of time. And tampons also allow for small random leaks. That happens more if it's not properly inserted, but if a tampon is soaked all the way through, or if you're lying on your side and it soaks through in not an even way, there can be some spotting that shows up, which is, of course, dotting of blood in the underwear or on a pad if you have a pad on with your tampon.
Let's talk about inserting tampons. This is a quick little graphic that I found. If you are interested in knowing more, there are much more detailed and accurate looking graphics. I chose this one because I want to be conscious of the fact that some people might not be comfortable with more accurate or graphic looking descriptions. So this is just a little line drawing. Essentially, this one shows an applicator. You put the applicator inside your body. And in the second picture here, you can see the applicator, the back of the applicator is being used to push the tampon into your body in just a cleaner way often than using your finger. If you use an applicator, the applicator pushes the tampon in, and then you just remove the applicator and throw it away. It's made of plastic or cardboard, whatever it is. If you don't use an applicator, you use your fingers, it's a little more scary for some people, and it is certainly messier, but that's that. The digital tampons we talked about are preferred by many people, and it's very common to see them used. They provide less waste because there is no applicator to dispose of. So that is one of the common pros in an argument for digital tampons as opposed to ones with applicators. So next is reusable pads. So we talked about reusable tampons as not being a good idea, but reusable pads are okay. They have been approved by the FDA for uses. So about 12% of people in the survey that we talked about earlier use reusable pads. And they are like a regular pad, but you can wash them and dry them out and use them again after each usage. So they're often made of cotton, hemp, or bamboo, and then to prevent leakage, instead of a plastic layer, they have a laminated cloth. So there's not much ability for it to leak into your clothing. They all have wings, like we were talking about earlier, because you need to snap them onto your underwear. They don't have adhesive because you need to wash them and the adhesive would come off. They have snaps, as you can see in this picture here. And those snaps are used to hold it onto your underwear. So, okay, pros and cons for reusable pads. Very similar to regular pads. Again, easy to place and remove, not even a sticky backing, so they won't stick to your underwear. And unlike plastic or the organic kind of pads, they don't rustle or crunch when you sit. So because the disposable pads are made of a plasticky material, they will make noise occasionally when you sit down or stand up. And the reusable pads are made of cotton and cloth, and they don't have that issue. They're also better for the environment because they're not producing as much waste. They do cost more with the first purchase, but last you a long time. Again, swapped out every 4 to 6 hours like a regular pad. But again, they can be bulky like regular pads, and they can be hard to wash or remove if you aren't home, because that involves you storing the wet, dirty, reusable pad in your bag or in a Ziploc. They also require washing between usage. If you only have one, you're going to have to do something else while it's washing. So it's probably recommended to have 3 or 4, maybe even 5, just so that you don't have to continuously wash the same one between each usage. Again, I mentioned they cost more in the beginning, but less in the long run. And again, you can't go swimming in them. Similarly, period underwear. Now, as of right now, as of when the survey was taken, very few people use period underwear, but they are gaining traction with a lot of people because better for the environment, because of less waste usage, and they're just underwear. When you put them on, you don't have to deal with any other purchase of tampons, pads, menstrual cups, whatever it is. That's all you need. So they are made of a highly absorbable, moisture wicking material. And the outer layer, the one that you see on the outside, is just for look and feel. That's just supposed to look and feel like regular underwear. And the inside layers are right next to that, a laminated layer, so nothing can get through to the outer layer. And then the highly absorbent material. Pros, they last a long time. So I don't know why it says swapped out every 4 to 6 hours, but it's maybe 4 to 8 hours. You keep them in all day and then you change them at night. Again, you don't have to add anything else to them. There's nothing to clip on, nothing to stick on. And there's no discomfort. It's like wearing slightly thicker underwear. So you're not getting that rustling, you're not getting any discomfort inside of your body because of insertion of tampons or menstrual cups into your vagina. And they're highly leak proof. These are the most leak-proof option that we've seen so far because they are just very good at retaining a lot of moisture. So you can't wear them 24 hours a day, but you can have one during the day and one during the night. That will generally work, seems to work for most customers, unless of course you have a heavier period, a heavier flow. And up at that point, it's just knowing that you would need to buy a thicker kind of period underwear or change it more. Unfortunately, the period underwear is also hardest to deal with if you're out, if you're not at home. Say you need to change it during the day, you have to take off your underwear, and of course, because it's the period underwear, and your pants, sometimes your shoes to get your pants off, and then put on a whole new pair of underwear, and then do something for the rest of the day with your used period underwear until you can get home. So that's a little bit difficult. Again, it requires washing between usage. You're going to want to have multiple pairs, especially for day and nighttime. And you can't swim in them, even though it is not a pad that goes on top of underwear. It's still not preventing the water from it's still not preventing the blood from leaking into the water. It's only meant to stop the blood from reaching your pants or reaching your skirt or anything you're sitting on. Next, we have menstrual cups. Menstrual cups are used by about 20% of women in the survey, which is really amazing because when I first started doing my research on this, I was expecting them to be used far less. I was not as knowledgeable about menstrual cups because that's not something that I am used to, but they are relatively common among menstruators. So essentially, they are made of a high-grade silicone and come in multiple different shapes. And they are meant to be folded and inserted into your body and act as a cup inside your vagina to stop the blood from coming out at all. It's not like a cotton piece that is absorbing the blood and preventing it from coming down. It's not like a piece of cotton in your underwear or period underwear that is stopping it from getting any farther. It is in your body a solid wall that is preventing any blood from escaping. So pros, no leakage unless there's blood there's a wrong insertion, or unless there's blood on the opposite side of the cup that didn't get cleaned out. There's no leakage. So you are safe to swim as well because there is no way that the blood can get out. And they last up to 12 hours between changing. This is the longest that we've seen so far because, again, it's made of plastic, it's a solid barrier, and it's simply holding the blood until it's time to be removed and the blood can come out into the toilet or wherever you are. So the same menstrual cup can be reused, cleaned, of course, first, for up to 5 years, which means it is much cheaper and environmentally friendly in the long run. So that's something that a lot of people have been really liking. And of course, it's, as you can see with the 20% number there, they are really catching on in popularity. So the issue is that for a lot of younger menstruators or first-time menstruators, it can be very daunting to put in a menstrual cup. It can even be daunting to put in a tampon, much less a cup that stays in your body for a long time. And the removal process is messy. It is a cup of blood that you have kept in your body. So when you're taking it out, you're going to get messy unless have been doing this for a really long time. It's not as easy to deal with as disposable pads or even disposable tampons. It is a messy process. So that also means you need to be conscious of where you're doing this. If you get blood all over your hands, you might want to be in a restroom that has a sink right there or have some sort of wipes with you. And because it can be daunting to insert, it is possible to insert it in an improper way, which can cause discomfort and leakage, as I mentioned earlier. If it's not in right, it's not doing its job right. So those are just some of the pros and cons of menstrual cups. And at this point, we've reached the end of my knowledge of the period products. So this is a period hygiene product workshop, but as an honorable mention, I'm mentioning panty liners. So panty liners are extremely thin pads. If you've seen them in the store, you would recognize them from the fact that you look at a box of pads and they're all maybe this thick or thicker, and then you look at a box of panty liners and it's like 4 inches wide and it's got like 20 of them in there, and they're very thin. So you're not getting the same sort of, blood absorption. So those are not used when you're actively on your period. You wouldn't use these because you'd have to be replacing them every 5 minutes. So these are used at the beginning of your period to sort of prevent it from startling you if it starts early or if it starts when you're not expecting it, or at the end of your period when it's really not worth it to use a whole pad anymore to prevent any extra blood or any additional junk that's in there. But they're also used all throughout the month to prevent discharge from getting on your underwear. So discharge is a gummy, sort of opaque snot type liquid, not the same consistency as a period. And it is very natural as part of the ovulation process. So you have menstruation and ovulation. They do opposite jobs. Menstruation gets rid of all the junk, gets rid of the egg, and ovulation puts a new egg in. So the discharge is part of that cycle, and it is released approximately the opposite time of the month as your period. So it can be especially hard for some people. The flow of discharge can be a lot for some people, and it leaves your underwear kind of gunky or crusty. So many people use panty liners as a layer to stop it from getting on their underwear, and just change them out once a day, or morning and then night. You have one for at night, one for in the morning. And it's just a small layer that prevents your underwear from feeling gross. And so I really wanted to touch on this because this is a period education workshop and a period education gold award, but one aspect of periods that is talked about even less than the periods themselves is discharge. It is a very natural part of the ovulation process and of menstruation in general, and it's not talked about as much because there is still stigma around that. It's not gross blood coming out, but it's still a part of the lives of many men and women who have periods. So I would definitely recommend doing some more research on discharge because it's very interesting. Excuse me. It's very interesting. And if you are a menstruator, your discharge color can tell you a lot about your menstrual health, which is really interesting. And I would recommend definitely doing some research into that if you're interested. That is, the pros and cons of panty liners used throughout the month. So they're very thin and unnoticeable in your underwear. And they stop stains. So if you use them with a tampon or menstrual cup, they can prevent any extra spotting of underwear, which is just extra little bits of blood getting on there, which can be kind of annoying. So it stops those stains. You wear it with something that goes inside your body, there's no chance of staining the underwear. The cons are, it is a lot of waste. If you use it the whole month, if you use it during your period, or at the beginning and end of your period, and then the other weeks, that's a lot of waste, a lot of thin little plastic. And organic options for panty liners are pretty rare. That is definitely something that is going to be building up popularity, of course, as we as a society transition to more environmentally conscious products. But right now, that is not something that you see super prevalently, even less than organic pads or tampons. So that is a lot of waste. And they're thin. I'm not sure if this is exactly a con, but you definitely should not use them as pads unless you have an extremely light flow during part of your period, or during a period. So they shouldn't be used to stand in for a pad. But that's essentially all of the products. I just wanted to include this. I got in my survey, I got a response asking me to talk about period products from the past. So these are some sort of pad harnesses, sanitary belts, as they were called at the time, and sanitary aprons. So it just was like a elastic diaper you would wear, and you can see some of them have little clips, and you can purchase the boxes of the pads that go on those clips. And I'm not sure if you can see this, but these sanitary pads are soaked in antiseptic. So there's gonna be some numbing of pain there. Perhaps sometimes they were soaked in alcohol. Sometimes they were soaked in cannabis. Sometimes they were soaked many things that you might today recognize as perhaps not safe to be putting on your body. But this was how they were done. You can find certainly a lot of different evolution of pads and evolution of tampons sort of images. And this is an ad from a newspaper, which is, I find really interesting, or perhaps a magazine. Just the way that they are advertised is very interesting. All right, and we've come to the Q&A portion of this workshop, which means I will be ending the recording. And I hope you guys learned a lot about different types of menstrual products, and thank you for coming.